We start with an interview you could see only on ABC15 Mornings. If you don't tune in between 4:30 and 7, Monday through Friday every morning, you are missing out. Today, ABC15 Morning anchor Connie Colla landed the first live one-on-one interview with former Maricopa County Attorney Andrew Thomas since he was disbarred a few days ago. Here is a chunk of that 5-minute in-depth interview.
I want to talk about, first of all, the Arizona Bar Association accusing you of a very serious crime, and that being perjury. Our federal sources now telling us you could be indicted. This morning, as you wake up, take us inside your life at this hour.
Well, the perjury charge is outrageous and makes absolutely no sense. And this is why in Arizona, we have to be very serious about going after corruption, because what's happened here is prosecutors in good faith went after corrupt people in government, and they have been smeared, they have been tarnished. I testified for a day and a half, and it was completely clear from my testimony that we had done everything in good faith. And what's suffering now is the community, because we do not have the ability to effectively fight corruption. We have people who were indicted, who got away with things. People are now suing the government. It's a very serious situation, and we have to fight back.
Mr. Thomas, when you look at the charges against you, there is not a single person in any of these situations, in any level, who has looked at these cases and said, you have a valid cause to charge any of this.
That's absolutely not true. I mean, Don Stapley was indicted by 2 grand juries in Maricopa County. The Yavapai County Attorney's Office believed there was probable cause. Mary Rose Wilcox, the same situation. That's what's happened here. You have people who have been indicted, proper charges have been brought, and instead there are people they're powerful people with friends in the judiciary. There were members of the judiciary who were implicated, and so you have a judicial smear job designed to retaliate against us for bringing these charges. And
so are you saying this is a smear campaign against you?
It absolutely is.
Wow, boy, this is really interesting and one of the hottest topics on our website right now. And if you'd like to see that entire interview, you can right now on ABC15.com. We're also going to have more on ABC15 at 4, 5, and our 6 o'clock newscast.
Yeah, it was certainly a very heated interview, and we want to bring in at this time today's guest, Jim Sharp from 550 KFYI. And Jim, after our interview here, you had a chance to interview Andrew Thomas for yourself, and you know him personally. What was your take on what he had to say?
Well, first off, he's absolutely right. You know, it's funny, before I ever worked with Andrew Thomas, I was telling him just this morning, we actually went and grabbed breakfast after he did my show this morning. I told him, you know, I hated you before I ever met you. And it all goes back to that New Times thing, which he never was the person who made the call on the arrest and that, but that's another issue. So I went into the situation not liking the guy. I ended up working with him. I was a consultant on his campaign in 2008, and then I consulted him for a very short while when he went to run for Attorney General. If Andrew Thomas is guilty of anything, it's being naive, it's thinking that that everybody can be held to the same standard of the law. But what the signal is now from this, if you decide to take on judges or politicians who are powerful, you're going to pay the price. This is going to have a chilling effect on government, the rooting out of government corruption, because that's what prosecutors are sometimes expected to do.
You know, Jim, I have to ask you, as a reporter watching Andrew Thomas, I don't know him on a personal level like you do, but on the outside looking in, covering his news conferences over so many years here in Maricopa County, he was a person who exuded confidence. He always, was very firm on what he was saying, very matter of fact of what he was saying. When we were watching that interview right there, it doesn't seem like the same Andrew Thomas I, as a reporter, used to cover his news conferences. What are you seeing as a friend?
Well, he's been kicked in the gut. This is like being a UPS driver and losing your license. He has no way to make a living the way he's made a living for years. I mean, he's a Harvard law graduate. This is what he's chosen to do with his life, and he chose to protect the voters, the taxpayers of Maricopa County, by actually going after 2 members of the Board of Supervisors who, luckily for them now, nobody's paying any attention to any of the charges that were brought against them because they've managed to prosecute the prosecutor. It's unprecedented what happened to Andrew Thomas being disbarred. You've had a couple of district attorneys, you've had a couple of prosecutors disbarred, but for basically making up evidence or, charging people they knew weren't guilty, none of that happened here.
I'll play devil's advocate for you.
Please.
Whenever you talk about making up evidence and things like that, Watching these proceedings, you know, you had some judges up there who made the disbarment ruling. People would disagree with you, saying, hey, the system that he once worked for now went against him.
If somebody can prove to me that Mary Rose Wilcox did not vote to fund an organization that later gave her a loan, my email address is jimsharp@kfyi.com.
But these are serious allegations. I mean, 32 ethics rule violations here, including everything from dishonesty, misrepresentation, filing frivolous lawsuits. I mean, this is a 3-panel, ethics committee that came up to this decision to disbar him. Are you saying that everything, all the evidence, all of this lengthy proceedings was just, bogus?
No, and maybe not every single one of those charges would have held up in a court of law. And there's prosecutorial, discretion. Sometimes you say, I think the guy did it, we don't have enough evidence, so you don't bring that to trial. Maybe he was a little too enthusiastic about what he did, but that really truly was Andrew Thomas's sin. And this is from a guy, like I said, who, I was like, oh, this guy doesn't even respect the First Amendment. He's arresting newspaper guys. And
right.
I still, to this day, don't agree with Andrew Thomas on a lot of things, a lot of policy issues. I just know him to be a good guy, and he's not a revengeful kind of person. That's just not how he is.
Well, he's a father of 4.
Yeah.
He's a husband. Yeah.
Well, this is very interesting insight you're providing. We thank you for this. And I want to see what the viewers are saying. And I think Fritz is the first one. And Fritz writes in, any reputable attorney would advise his client not to do this kind of interview. He's referring to the Andrew Thomas interview this morning, I suppose. I guess this is just more evidence as to why this narcissist shouldn't be allowed to practice law.
Judy Reynolds says he didn't do anything wrong to lose his license. The legal system he supposedly believes in did not agree with him.
And Scott Jenkins writes in, I watched the interview this morning. He looked guilty. The pitch and volume of his voice was clearly agitated and looked guilty and desperate.
But you stand by his character.
Well, yeah, I do. And guilty of what? I mean, these weren't criminal charges. This was basically a, an organization that regulates themselves, saying you don't get to keep your license. So he wasn't guilty. They didn't bring any criminal charges against the guy.
Maybe we can get back to this towards the end of the show. We're going to move on right now, but that entire interview is on ABC15.com.
And we have a lot more to come. We're just getting started.
That's right.